In this lesson, we're going to talk about constants, and constants are actually available within classes, but they're globally available values that you can access even outside of the class without having to set up a new object to access it. And then, of course, you can access it available within the object itself, and you can access within methods that are available within the class as well. So we're going to quickly take a look at the code here. So what we've done here, we've set up a constant within the car blueprint of constant myColor red. And the way that we're accessing it, we've got our three different ways that we're outputting that same value, and we're accessing it in three different ways. The first one should be familiar if you've watched the previous lessons, where we've got the object and we're doing that minus greater than sign and calling in a method that's available within the object, and that method within the object is what color, and here we do have that method, so it's a public method. There's what color, and it's just returning that color value. The only difference when you are using a constant, we're returning a constant value. So it's no longer a property, the same as what we have down here, and the syntax is going to be slightly different, where we're not including this, we're not doing it within this type of format, we're returning it as self, and then we've got the two colons, and then we've got the value. So myColor, in order to return a constant within the class itself, you have to do it this way. So the self just identifies it as the class, the car blueprint, and remember that constants are globally available, so we only need to refer to self as car blueprint, and if we do actually do car blueprint and myColor, it actually returns the same value. So this is because it's outside of the actual class. We have to reference the class in some way, and the way that we're doing that, we're referencing the class instead of the self that we used over here. We're just referencing the class, and we've got the two colons and then the constant that's available within this class. So just going to look at that for a second, and we're actually doing the same thing over here where we're referencing the constant, and this is just another way that we're actually accessing that same car blueprint, and just that the car blueprint is actually defined as an object, and that object relates to this particular class. So that's why we're able to do it in this format as well. So typically you're not going to be using it within an object, although you can. If you do have constants, you usually would set it in a separate constant class and access them throughout your coding in this type of format. And this just shows that once this constant is set, even though it's available within the class itself, it is still accessible by just referencing the class and referencing the property that you're looking for. So these are the three different ways that we can essentially get the same result, and in all these are three different ways to reference that same car blueprint and property value of myColor and get the value of red returned. Just look at those again quickly, because it is important to understand what the difference of constants and when you may need to use them, that you do understand how to reference them and how to access that information. So initially we're doing object, and this object is already tied to car blueprint, but we don't necessarily need to set up an object in order to access it as we've done down here. But here object is tied to car blueprint, the class car blueprint. So that's understood that we're using car blueprint and we're looking at a constant that's available. This just identifies it as a constant, and we're looking for that constant called myColor. In the second example, we already identified that car blueprint is this class, and this is where we're going to look for that constant. So in this one, we're actually just calling in a typical object and a method within that object of what color, and the difference for constants is how we're returning the this or the self the self property. So within the class itself, you'd have to write it in this type of syntax where you do self, you do the 2 colons, and again that self is referring to the car blueprint class. It's just that it's inside of itself and it's looking for this value from my color, returning out red, and then returning this method value to be red. And then lastly, again, car blueprint, we've got the 2 colons again because we're again accessing this class, indicating that we want to look in the class, and this is the constant that we're going to be looking for in the class and that we're trying to get access and we're trying to return the value of. And then the rest of it is just outputting here within our output code. We're just concatenating it, adding it in to our string, and then outputting it within example 1.